It wasn't the blowout that many Chiefs fans wanted, but the Chiefs still left Carolina with the win on Sunday, beating the Panthers 30-27, thanks to a late field goal from Spencer Schrader, who was still filling in for the injured Harrison Butker. We've got some good, some bad, and a whole lot of the same from this one. We're going to talk about it today on 10 Things.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
What up, Chiefs Kingdom? BJ Kissel and Tucker Franklin today on 10 Things, breaking down the Chiefs 30-27 win over the Carolina Panthers. Tucker, it wasn't, like I said in the intro, it wasn't the game that a lot of Chiefs fans probably wanted it to be to feel a little bit better. Yeah. So a lot of the same in that regard, but the Chiefs are still 10-1, and it's a beautiful day here on Monday, November 25th.
Look, I think that what's really telling about that game, too, is the post-game video that the Chiefs put out. You usually don't get a whole lot in those videos, right? They're usually pretty, oh, look, they won a game. Yay, this is happy. Look what happened inside the locker room. That video was not that attitude. That video was, it seemed like a pretty frustrated Andy Reid. He did tell all the guys, obviously, to keep their heads up and everything. That's still 10-1, hard to be that. But, like, it seemed like it was a very upset locker room. I believe Nate Taylor even wrote a story about the tone of the locker room after a win, where you get a game-winning field goal. It's kind of, I feel bad to be Spencer Schrader, right? You kick a game-winning field goal and everyone's mad about you hitting a game-winning field goal. But overall, I think that kind of echoed the sentiment of maybe a lot of Chiefs fans. When we were doing the live post-game show, you would have thought that the Chiefs lost that football game. But I think that there's just a high expectation in Chiefs Kingdom, just with the team and with the fan base too.
Yeah, and we're going to get into the 10 things. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. Whether you're watching live, please let us know in the comment section how you're feeling, or if you're listening to the audio after the fact. And if you're watching the video and you want more Chiefs content, go seek us out on Apple or Spotify podcasts. So search KC Sports Network. You can find all our stuff there, and vice versa. For anybody listening who wants to get the video version and see Tucker's beautiful face, you can do that on our YouTube channel. But we appreciate all of you. But yeah, Tucker, we talked about this on the postgame show last night. That, not to get all preachy about it, but like people fan in different ways. For sure. And you watch the game and you want to pick apart, like, what is it going to take for us to be better? You know, I think everybody understands that we're still one of the best teams in the AFC, regardless of how we're winning these games. We saw the margin of error come back to bite us against the Buffalo Bills, and we don't play well. But other than that, we've played some of the best teams in the AFC, and we're going to still face them. But it wasn't that long ago that we shouldn't take these things for granted. I laugh when you brought up Spencer Schrader, because I never thought about it from his perspective of like, you guys are really upset. Like, we just won an NFL football game. And these aren't easy to come by. But yeah, there's some crazy, more accolades and superlatives coming from this game. And we go through a lot of these here on 10 Things. Your first time watching, we're going to go through some information. A lot of this put out by the Chiefs communications department, with some of these records and things that were broken. And then we're going to throw in some stats, some PFF numbers, and some of the stuff that we found and gathered since the game ended yesterday. But Tucker, I want to get into this first one. Before we do that, I do want to shout out Session Tacos, formerly known as Mission Taco Joint, for supporting us and for supporting the KCSN Foundation. Make sure when you're feeling tacos, check out Mission Taco Joint, several locations in Kansas City. And if you want to go on a Tuesday and you mention KCSN, you get 10% off. So it's not nothing, maybe some free guac. You mentioned KCSN, and the guac's pretty good there, Tuck.
Yeah, they got good guac. I do, and you're gonna make me want to go get some Mission Taco or some Session Taco now. The artist formerly known as Mission Taco Joint. After this, that's what I'm gonna have to do.
All right, let's get into this thing so we stop thinking about tacos, and let's talk about Andy Reid.
Yeah,
let's talk about the fact that he registers with that win on Sunday, double-digit win total again. Mm-hmm. So with Sunday's 30-27 win against the Panthers, Andy Reid registered his 19th career 10-win season, sitting alone in third place for the most double-digit win seasons by a head coach in NFL history. He is now just one 10-win season shy of tying Bill Belichick and Don Shula for the most such seasons in NFL history. Of his 19 10-win seasons, 11 of those have come in Kansas City with the Chiefs, with 2013, and then we don't talk about 2014, and then this streak that we're on right now from 2015 all the way through now, the season of the season of 2024. Reed has now won at least 10 games in 11 of his 12 seasons in Kansas City. These are those things that I love to talk about, Tucker, at least mention, because they get glossed over in a lot of other podcasts. It's a lot of opinion, a lot of discussion, a lot of banter back and forth. Sometimes you just need some cold, hard facts to give you that jolt of reality of, holy cow, another 10-win season, 10 straight. This is the golden age of Chiefs football. These are the good old days, as some would say.
These are the good old days. You're looking good in that little the Smurf hoodie that we got rocking there. You can go check out.
It's the most popular one. It's the most
it
popular
is. Look, I love the way it looks. It pops there. These are the good old days. Shout out to Joe Morriswell. Great designs that we got there going on the shop. I get the notification every time somebody buys something, and it's always fun to see what people get to. But yes, Andy Reid has brought the good old days to Kansas City. I want to bring this up from Brian Edelman. He said he named his two boys after Coach Reid. He named them Andy and Reid after Coach Reid. Like, that is what Andy Reid has done for the city of Kansas City. You got people naming their kids after him. That's incredible.
And Brian, I want to shout this out because I saw it on social media and I was following a little bit with the comment from Kevin Boss this morning. Brian, in the comment section, can you type up exactly what went down this weekend with the game and what you guys were able to do, getting hold and getting the picture with Coach Reid? I don't want to explain it incorrectly. So if you could hit us up in the comment section, let us know what went down. We'll read that. So I make sure that I get it right. But there's gonna be a lot of Patricks running around, a lot of Browns and Sterling. For those,
I know
really
a lot of Kelces that are spelled, like girls named Kelce that are spelled Kelce. So I mean, there's a lot of those running around too.
Yeah, it's just, again, one more season with 10 wins shy of tying Bill Belichick and Don Shula for the most 21 seasons. And the crazy part, and I was reading this earlier. So Reid has recorded at least 10 wins in 10 consecutive seasons in Kansas City. He's just the second coach in NFL history to record at least 10 wins in 10 consecutive seasons, joining Bill Belichick, who recorded at least 10 wins in 17 consecutive seasons. Like,
that's insane.
That is Bill Belichick. I mean, that is what Andy Reid, if he decides that he wants to continue coaching as long as he possibly can, to be able to have Patrick Mahomes throughout his entire prime. I mean, that is Tom Brady and Bill Belichick working. We could see something very similar, barring he stays healthy. But man, that really slaps it with a cold hard face of reality when talk about the success. And that doesn't mean that we won't talk about the issues at the offensive tackles, the pass rush, all the different things. We will get there, everybody, I promise. But we're going to start with some of these more positive things because more big picture, and that's just nuts.
That means Belichick into this. When Brady got hurt and tore his ACL, right? That 1 year, that means he still won 10 games.
When Bernard Pollard made Matt Castle a lot of money
after his knee.
And then they rewrote the rule that you couldn't go after quarterbacks' knees after that. Yeah, they still went and won 10 games with Matt Castle, and Scott Purley got a front row seat to it. And then he brought him to Kansas City, got Matt a whole lot of money, which he used to get a farm in Nashville. And we've talked about that quite a bit. But yeah, okay, so real quick, Brian, this is Brian Edelman in the comment section reading what happened. Kevin Boss said a kid had brain cancer. I tagged some of the people on Twitter in the Chiefs organization, and one reached out and they got the kid on the field and he met Andy Reid. Wow. I believe it was Rob Alberino, if I'm not mistaken. Brian, let me know if that's the case. But Rob runs the digital production departments for the Chiefs. Phenomenal at what he does. Also a phenomenal dude. So not surprising if he was able to see that. Thank you, Brian, confirming it was Rob. Not a surprise that they got that done. Glad it goes public. They do a lot of things like this. That doesn't always get out, but it's nice to know that some good people there that understand their platform and what it can do.
That's awesome. Love to see stuff like that. When it does like that, I know sometimes we can get bogged down in games like this. It's good to see stuff like that.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to number 2. That was a long one.
It was long.
Let's move on to this is gonna be long too. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Kelce moves into the top 3 for receiving yards by a tight end. Travis Kelce recorded 62 receiving yards on 6 receptions during Sunday's game, giving him 11,897 career receiving yards. He passed Antonio Gates for the 3rd most receiving yards by a tight end in NFL history, and now trails only Tony Gonzalez and Jason Witten. He is one of just 4 tight ends in NFL history to own 11,000 or more career receiving yards, and the only active tight end over that mark. He now owns 975 career receptions for 11,897 yards. 25 receptions away from 1,000 for his career. That's a big mark. That's going to be Joel's making a graphic for that one.
Joel will be making a graphic for
We'll
that.
have a graphic on the old socials.
And he's getting close to a lot of different milestones too, when it comes to just what he's been able to do for the franchise, and even in the NFL. You mentioned the NFL one right there, but for the franchise, like, he's tied right now with Tony Gonzalez for receiving touchdown passes in Chiefs history. He has 79 total touchdowns. He's 5 shy of Priest Holmes' 83 for the franchise record in touchdowns. So Kelce can do a clean sweep. Look, one big game, Travis Kelce can have a big clean sweep of all the Chiefs leaderboards in terms of touchdowns. Yeah, I believe he passed yards already this season for franchise. He's getting close to NFL yards after the catch too, in like top 5 of yards after the catch, which is incredible. I think he might have popped that yesterday. What he's been able to do, obviously, has been massive. I know he's slowing down a little bit there too, but just having his name at the top of all of those Chiefs leaderboards, I think, is fitting for like what he's done for the team and this era of Chiefs football. He's been there from the beginning, right? From the dog. It feels like from the dog days he was there, and he kind of came up with the team. So it's good to have a guy like that you see. I know some people have a sour taste about Tony Gonzalez, right? For how all that went down, but to have a guy like Travis Kelce at the top, I think is good. Yeah, I mean, look, I understand, I get it, I understand why people do, but
listen, you can go to other places. People forget, like Jamal Charles, like he went to Denver, and Derek Johnson went to the Raiders. Yeah. People don't really remember that because they didn't get in front of the media and say the Raiders and Broncos made their careers either.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
That was tough to hear. But he was here at a time that the team wasn't very good.
Chad does not like Tony Gonzalez. Yeah, Chad is not a fan of Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah, I'm Team Kelce.
And that's good. I'm glad that
not that we shouldn't pin them against each other. They like each other.
For sure.
Travis has talked throughout his career about what Tony has meant to him, and I've told this story 100 times. That one of my favorite interviews I ever did at the Chiefs was on Radio Row. It was the same weekend that we interviewed Patrick Mahomes a few months before he was drafted. It was in Houston. It was a Super Bowl. I think it was the Falcons Patriots. It was a 28-3 game. We were there the week before. Myself and one other producer for the Chiefs went down on Radio Row because all the media is there. And Kelce was down there doing rounds. We sat down and talked to him, and he was very open about understanding his place as a leader and when it's his time to step up and say something in the locker room, not to the media, not the stuff that fans see, but the stuff that matters behind the scenes when you need somebody just to kind of put their foot in your butt and tell, like, hey, this isn't good enough. And he, as a young player, didn't know when he had that platform. And Tony Gonzalez is the one who said, you're going to have that platform years before you feel comfortable having it and being able to speak up. And it was one of the most important things that he had, and or one of the most important conversations that he had at that point in his career, and what it meant to him just kind of like leadership wise. And it's one of the reasons that we've been on this run is guys like Kelce and Mahomes that we take for granted now. But early in his career, he's a really talented guy that did some dumb stuff behind the scenes and throwing the refs at the flag and all that stuff. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but you ask those two guys, they're going to respect the hell out of each other. But I don't blame any Chiefs fans that are upset for what Tony said, because it came across very like, and then afterwards he's like, oh, that's not what I meant. Like, yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think too, it's good to see a guy like Travis Kelce at the top, right? To see him at the top of all those leaderboards, I think it's going to give all the Chiefs Kingdom the warm and fuzzies.
Yeah, and Travis Kelce's been nothing but a good dude, whether there's a camera in his face or not, to people. And all the experiences I had with him around him, or people that know him, see him around town. So awesome. All right, let's move on to number 3. Speaking of guys breaking all kinds of records. These hit a little different, Tucker. You have talked about this before, but Patrick Mahomes ties Len Dawson for the top touchdown mark. Mahomes completed 27 of 37 passes for 269 yards with 3 touchdowns in Sunday's game, good for a 120.2 passer rating. Mahomes also recorded 60 yards rushing on 5 carries with a career-long 33-yard rush in the game's fourth quarter, which was awesome. But it helped set up the game-winning field goal by Spencer Schrader. With his 3 touchdown passes, Mahomes tied Pro Football Hall of Fame quarterback Len Dawson for the most touchdown passes in franchise history, needing just one more pass to move into sole possession of the franchise record. For Mahomes, it was his 41st career game with 3 or more touchdown tosses. I got to say that again. It was Mahomes' 41st career game with 3 or more touchdown passes in a game, going 33-8 in those games. Marks his 55th career game with 100 or better passer rating. Tuck, there's a lot in there to unpack. But overall, Patrick Mahomes, very good game. One of the best games of his season.
Yeah. You and I were kind of talking about this offline too before we went live. There's some cut-ups going around on Twitter. I think there's maybe one ball that Mahomes probably wanted back, but other than that, he played really well against the Panthers. And it's a shame that when Patrick Mahomes has started to play pretty well, that the defense is going to have some issues because that's just how it's going to go, right? But Patrick Mahomes played really well. To put in perspective, just 237 touchdowns too, and in his career to tie for the franchise record already is. I think we expected Patrick Mahomes to have these franchise records, right? When he got off to the start, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, well, he's probably gonna get all these records." But still, when he passes guys like Trent Green and Alex Smith and Lynn Dawson, no, he's tied with Lynn Dawson now, but like, it's some of those things you got to step back and be like, wow, like he's doing something special here. Lynn Dawson was a staple for this team, and obviously Patrick Mahomes is now too. And to have him again at the top of this list to really cements this era of Chiefs lore, I guess.
Yeah, I think for such a long time, it was just another reminder, and it was good and bad depending upon how you want to take it. But it's just another reminder of every time we talk about the quarterback records that, Len Dawson played in. He was a Hall of Fame quarterback. If he played in an era, they didn't throw the football a lot. Right. So passing a lot of these records wasn't difficult. He was doing a lot of these he passed Len Dawson in career touchdown passes in like his 5th season. It's like, that's kind of sad for the history of, Chiefs football during the eras in which they started passing more. We're not going to knock what football was back when Len Dawson was playing, and that relative, he was the best, but it's kind of sad. We're talking about that. That's how I felt about the receiving records when Tyreek Hill was here, because he had Otis Taylor and then spiked the season with, Derek Alexander and some of those guys, but still a little sad when going through it overall. But one thing, there's been some talk about Patrick Mahomes and just not taking care of the football and just some of those like narratives going throughout the season. Looked up his last 5 games, he has 12 touchdowns and 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
So like it's evening out. I'm not saying obviously one of the Bills everyone's going to remember because it was the first drive, like second play of the game. But overall, like he's been playing better. And the more that DeAndre Hopkins gets set into this offense, and we didn't have a chance to talk about this since I was in Buffalo. I know we talked about it offline, but DeAndre Hopkins still doesn't know the offense completely. I saw in Buffalo, I was close, like in a couple of instances where he didn't know where to line up, didn't know the route as the play began. He caught one of the passes, but even Mahomes was shaking his head. He immediately went off to the side and was talking with Coach Embry, and he was talking with Nagy off to the side, and they were telling him what he was supposed to do. This is the middle of a huge game, and obviously that's going to be better going on throughout the season. So big picture for me, it's another trial by fire for Najee Johnson, which we'll get into. But these games are just kind of stepping stones to making sure they're playing their best football at the end of the season. They got 6 more games to figure that out, which is getting guys back and healthy. It's getting DeAndre Hopkins more comfortable with a bigger chunk of the offense, while still being able to go out there and play backyard football and make some plays just because he's that talented.
I will say this too, and talking about like his interceptions early on, Patrick Mahomes, and kind of how those things have evened out. We talk about this all the time in terms of, I'll say it in air quotes, right? Luck. Turnover worthy plays has been a buzzworthy stat to throw out there recently. Yeah. I think in terms of conversations, Mahomes was throwing, I think he had 7 interceptions earlier, maybe it was 6 interceptions, but it was on like 3 turnover worthy plays. So he was just getting unlucky with that. Now you're seeing the regression back towards the mean. Josh Allen had like 1 interception on 12 turnover worthy plays. And now you're seeing his interceptions start to come up. It's just one of those things where it all evens out, truthfully. And I think like in the last couple games, BJ, as you mentioned, he has been playing really well and more confident where he's going with the football. I think that's been a big thing with it too. But like, yeah, DeAndre Hopkins out there, and just if you throw it in his area, he's going to catch it. It also probably boost your confidence up a little bit, knowing that if you just get it in his area, he's going to haul it in. But they have been playing really well, even thanks to a guy we're going to talk about here coming up next.
Yeah, let's get right into Noah Gray. We can speed this process up a little bit. That is a career day. Noah Gray reeled in the longest reception of his career on a 35-yard touchdown pass from Mahomes to close the game's opening drive and put the Chiefs up 7-0 with 13:44 left in the first quarter. In the game's second quarter, Gray caught an 11-yard touchdown pass with 50 seconds left in the first half to cap off a 14-play, 92-yard scoring drive. These two scores give him a single-season career-high 4 receiving touchdowns in 2024. Gray now owns 8 career touchdown catches and has scored 2 touchdowns in back-to-back games. It marks the first time the Chiefs have had a pass catcher record at least 2 TD receptions in back-to-back games since Tyreek Hill accomplished the feat versus the Jets on November 1st, 2020, and versus the Panthers November 8th, 2020. During the 2020 season, Gray finished his personal record-setting day, tying single-game career highs for catches with 4, receiving yards with 66, and to go with the 2 touchdowns en routes to Kansas City's 30-27 victory over the Panthers. Noah Gray, he's open and he catches the football.
Look, those are 2 very big things that goes into being a successful tight end. I've been really impressed with Noah Gray. And look, I know Noah Gray has done the role that he's been asked every single year that he's been in. Travis Kelce and Andy Reid and really all the coaches speak nothing but high remarks about Noah Gray. They speak very highly of him. And now this year just happens to be, we're going to need you to catch some passes and get some yards. We're going to need that to happen a little bit too. Travis, defenses are taking him out of the game, but he's also lost another step. So, I mean, it's one of the things where he's had to step up here, and he has. So getting the 2 touchdowns is really cool to see. The stat of him having 4 career touchdowns heading into these last 2 games, but then having 4 touchdowns now on the season is really cool to see him just be where he needs to be. He's very much of a lunch pail and hard hat type of guy, right? He's going to do his job. He's going to get in there and he's going to get things done. And I like that how he's been able to find that space that Travis Kelce used to do. And there's sometimes, I don't know about you, BJ, where I see him catch the ball, I think, oh, it's Travis, and then I realize it's 83 instead of 87. So like he's got a little bit of the same look of like the yards after the catch and everything like that. But I've seen some jokes and some memes on Twitter about how look, they had Tony Gonzalez and they had Travis Kelce, and Noah Gray is just the next one up. He's the next great Chiefs tight end. Is Noah Gray coming up? Look, I think I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, and it looks like, and all their players and all their routes are interchangeable anyway, but it does feel like Noah Gray is starting to run some of the concepts and routes that Kelce had earlier in his career, and now Kelce is running the other routes that influence the defense to put Noah Gray in a position to be successful the way those are designed. And now you just flip-flop everybody, which is a great thing to see. And one of the things that did stand out to me after Noah Gray's touchdown is how just joyfully elated Travis Kelce was when he goes out there and makes plays. Sometimes whether you could tell or not, I think we know the players well enough that we could tell if it was disingenuine, but that's not. And that's one of those things of like, not every team is necessarily going to be like that. Guys want the ball. They want to put up numbers. That's not Kelce right now. One guy I don't think cares about putting up the numbers either, but continues to put up the numbers the Chiefs need him to is DeAndre Hopkins. Let's talk about him real quick. Coming off the scramble drill from Mahomes, DeAndre Hopkins was able to find open space in the back of the end zone and make a 3-yard touchdown grab to put the Chiefs up 27-16 over the Panthers with 2:49 left in the third quarter. It marks Hopkins' 3rd touchdown reception in a Chiefs uniform and his 4th touchdown grab of the 2024 season overall. Hopkins helped lead the Chiefs offense to victory after tallying 5 catches for 35 yards and a touchdown. I talk, we just touched on him, but again, getting DeAndre Hopkins when the Chiefs did this next 6 weeks is just building up to be able to feel comfortable with everything that you would need him to by the time you get to the playoffs. And he's stacking up important catches in big moments and developing that chemistry that they're going to need when they go as we get into January, February football.
I'm thinking off the top of my head here. I think all 3 of those touchdown catches from DeAndre Hopkins have been in the red zone. So I don't think they've been. He had the one big play, obviously, against Tampa Bay, where it was the ball downfield, but then that set him up for a red zone score. Having him just as a weapon in the red zone, where Patrick Mahomes can buy some time and have a guy who is aware of what defenses are, just a football savvy guy of knowing where Mahomes is going to go and then where he can kind of fit in there, is great for Mahomes, right? Because Mahomes loves to buy time, especially in those goal line situations. You saw it last week against Buffalo. He did it, and he found Noah Gray in the back of the end zone. And this time, man, he threw a dart. The pass that he had here as he stepped up in the pocket, and he threw a dart off of one leg right to Hopkins. I think just having him right now, as you mentioned, we already touched on him, just like trying to get worked into the offense, but having him just as a red zone threat has been huge. I mean, 3 touchdowns already in his 4th game, right? Maybe 5th game. But he's finding the end zone, and he's just another weapon that teams have to be cautious of. You have to know that he's there. You can't just ignore DeAndre Hopkins, right? Even though if you think he doesn't know the offense, you can't just ignore him. But I've been impressed with DeAndre Hopkins so far, and especially his ability to just haul in everything. I think has been awesome.
Yeah, he's been exactly what the Chiefs have needed him to be so far, while knowing that a lot of the most important work with DeAndre Hopkins is happening in between game days. Again, this is about developing him, getting him ready for the playoffs, where everybody's going to unload everything and try stifle this Chiefs offense, which, while we know we still have some issues, and we're going to get to the offensive tackle stuff on the second half of this show, but incrementally getting a little bit better, not having huge injuries, and obviously getting DJ Humphries back, which I know we can touch on here in a bit. But before we go to break, I do want to mention that we are right now in the middle of the 4th annual Soul of KC raffle. It's our holiday toy drive. We've done it, like I said, this will be our 4th year doing it. It goes to benefit Operation Breakthrough and their Christmas store, helping make sure that more kids in the Kansas City community have a fantastic Christmas. We've got more than 20 prizes this year, including things like a Patrick Mahomes signed mini helmet, a Chris Jones signed jersey, the holiday bourbon pack, tickets in the VIP tailgate with parking pass to the game against the Houston Texans on December 21st. You can swing by the tailgate and hang out with some folks at KCSN. I'll be out there with my family hanging out. We've got all kinds of gift cards to local restaurants. You can see it right there. You can go on social media and find everything. There's also a link in the description of both the audio podcast and on the YouTube channel here with information, a link on where to buy tickets. But you get 1 ticket for $20, 5 tickets for $50, 15 tickets for $100, enters you for a chance to win any of those 20 items. We will be closing the raffle on December 8th. So we still got a couple of more weeks while we're running those tickets, but all of the money that's raised from these raffle tickets, we take to Dick's Sporting Goods. They've been gracious enough to partner with us. They write a check to Operation Breakthrough as well. And then we go on a gigantic shopping spree and buy as many toys as we possibly can. We have raised more than $50,000 over the last 3 years in doing this program. It's one of our favorite things that we do during the holidays each year. And we appreciate your support. You can buy tickets either through our Give Butter page at givebutter.com/KCSN, or you can do it through our Venmo, or you can find us at KC Sports Network. Either way, you can get Venmo tickets that way. And then the winners will be drawn during the Only Weird Games episode on Tuesday, December 10th. I think I got through all of that. Tucker's nodding, so I think we're good. But we're going to go through a quick break. But if you want to help us support more people and more kids in Kansas City having a great Christmas, think about supporting the Soul of KC holiday raffle. And hopefully we get all those presents to you before Christmas. You win something cool. But we'll be right back after this.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to 10 Things here on KC Sports Network. BJ Kissel hanging out with Tucker Franklin. We did a lot of the positive stuff in the first half of the show. Second half, still going to be a little positive, but there's going to be some negative mixed in here too for all you haters out there. I'm just kidding. You're not haters. You're realists is what you call yourselves.
Before we get into that, can I talk about another positive?
Yeah, and I didn't mean that bad. That came out badly too. I understand it. There's always stuff to talk about after every win, especially when you beat one of the worst teams in football by a late field goal.
That is true. Another positive is obviously getting a buttery, clean, smooth shave. Obviously, everyone loves a good shave there. And look, the holidays, they're coming up. Faster than your aunt's fruitcake recipe. I've got something to share with you too. If you don't like fruitcake, and if you want to look sharp for those festive gatherings and maybe win that Best Groomed at the Family Dinner award, check out the latest masterpiece from Manscaped. It's the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver. Trust me, it's like Rudolph for your face. Incredible analogy there. Guiding you to a smooth, irritation-free shave. Head on over to Manscaped and join the over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using code KC Sports for 20% off plus free shipping. That's code KC Sports for 20% off plus free shipping. The Chairman Pro isn't just for daily shaves. It's powerful enough to tackle up to a 5-day growth, making it perfect for shaving every day or just tidying up after a few days. And with up to 75 minutes of runtime on a single charge, you'll have plenty of juice to go from Santa's beard to smooth as a snow angel. Get the Chairman Pro today and experience a shave that is as smooth as you deserve. 20% off plus free shipping with the code KC Sports at Manscaped. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code KC Sports at manscaped.com. There it is.
It's pretty solid. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Pretty solid.
Good stuff.
All right. Let's get into some PFF numbers, Tucker.
Let's do it.
Because who doesn't love a little PFF numbers? All right. So we're starting on the defensive side, just top guys, bottom guys, and we get into some more context. I know we're going to talk about the tackles because I went on a little deeper dive with those guys. But according to Pro Football Focus, the top 5 graded, one of these is very surprising, Tucker. The top 5 graded defensive players on Sunday against the Panthers. Mike Dana was the highest graded Chiefs player. Then Jaden Hicks was number 2. Chris Jones, number 3. Najee Johnson, number 4.
All right.
And Josh Uche, number 5 as the highest graded Chiefs players. Any of those surprise you?
Yeah, Najee Johnson surprises me. Do you think it's because he led the team in tackles again, BJ? Do you think that's why? That's why the PFF stat was so high. Do you have the advanced numbers by Najee Johnson right in front of you too at the PFF? I'm just curious of what he allowed in terms of targets and receptions against type.
According to this, and this is where I don't believe these numbers. I don't understand how, and they could have some smart people and they have some people that don't understand grading sometimes, it feels like. But take these with a grain of salt. They do have him as down for 8 targets, allowing 3 receptions for 41 yards.
Okay.
I don't know. I didn't go back and watch, so they've put more effort into their numbers than I have, but the eye test gives me a little bit of pause on that. But if that is true and we're just misreading things or looking for things that aren't there, hopefully that's a sign of things to come, because I think we all agreed, and we talked about on the post-game show last night, they are really giving him an opportunity to trial by fire. They are throwing him in there and saying, you might struggle for a handful of games and we may lose a game against the Bills. We didn't lose just because of Najee Johnson, but he did not play well. Didn't think he played particularly well against Carolina, but they were still able to win games. Conversation becomes, even if he's not great, I mean, we are at the end of the roster with guys. I trust our defensive coaches to know better than I do who the best player is that they have available to go out there and play. So if he's the best option, which I would trust Spags to do that, not a great look, but at some point we all have to just agree that Jalen Watson's injury was a lot bigger deal than any of us thought. With all the injuries they're dealing with, that seems to be the one that they haven't figured out a replacement for to play at an adequate level.
Here's the thing, too. I talked with Craig Stout earlier this morning about this as well, because I saw the snap counts come out, and I saved them, and I sent them to Craig in a text message, and I said, Joshua Williams got 0 defensive snaps. He was only on special teams. Here's the thing. I am also with you, BJ, that I don't think coaches are purposely playing worse players, right? There's a reason that Najee Johnson is getting those defensive snaps. There's a reason that Joshua Williams is not getting those defensive snaps.
And we might not like the reason. It's just like he's better than
Correct.
everybody else. Like whatever the reason is, it's going to cause you to be like, well, then it's Brett Veach's. It's going to be somebody's fault that they got to this point, but it's also injury, and you've got to figure out who that next person is going to be to give you a chance. And if you don't have that person, you do exactly what they're doing, which is
all right,
go get better, and we'll see how you respond. And I see CJ, or who I saw a comment. Dr. Ozzy saying Nazee's grade is going to be better because some of the catches he gave up were great coverage and just better throws. I would agree with you, but I have whiplash from having these same conversations a decade ago about Phillip Gaines. Outside of the game against the Colts, where he gave up like 400 yards, the knock on him was that he couldn't turn his head around and make a play, but he was always right around there. He just couldn't actually make a play on the ball. And so to some point, yes, Najee is in the general area and he's not getting completely torched. But at some point you have to make a play out there, or these top receivers are going to be schemed on third down into your area, like we saw against Buffalo with Amari Cooper. When they needed a 3rd and 8 conversion, they figured out a way to get their guy on 13, and they won that matchup. So he was giving up plays to dudes yesterday, and Xavier Legette is not the kind of receiver they're going to face when the games matter, and he's got to go stop a play to George Pickens down the field, or Mike Williams down the field now with Pittsburgh, or Nico Collins, who's back and healthy. Like those are the types of teams that you're setting him up to need to be good enough to be able to go out there and beat.
I've had this conversation a lot, BJ, over the last couple of years with the Missouri Tigers, right? When we have a conversation about the quarterback situation of like, why is Brady Cook still playing? And it feels like kind of we're having the same conversation of like, why is Najee Johnson still playing? Well, they probably don't have anybody better to play. And that's really what it comes down to. And again, I will say it again because I think it is important. Coaches aren't purposely playing worse players just because, right? Like that's not what they're doing. Their jobs are on the line too. So like the fact that people are just like, oh, they're just playing him just be, but he's better. I remember Dorian O'Daniel was the same way, right? Like they keep playing Ben Neiman because Dorian O'Daniel, like why are they keeping Dorian O'Daniel? There's a reason Dorian O'Daniel wasn't playing.
Yeah, he didn't know where to go.
Right, correct.
He didn't know what he was doing. So and I think it set people off. I'm not comparing Phillip Gaines to.
He gave me PTSD when he brought up Phillip Gaines.
I just remember having those conversations that athletically, Phillip Gaines was everything you wanted. He was always right around it. He just couldn't make a play on the ball. But he did everything else that you asked him to do. He's a great teammate, worked hard, did all those types of things that you hear about players when they're struggling. Everybody talks about how great a player that's what we've heard about Najee Johnson. We know how great of a player and teammate and everything that he is. And we should all agree that we've seen this happen before by giving up on players in weeks in the middle of the regular season that are struggling to get there, that we see in the playoffs. They step up and make plays. MVS is going to be a punchline to Chiefs fans forever, but he also made 3 of the biggest catches during this stretch to seal playoff games or to win, scored a touchdown against Buffalo. Like it's going to be a punchline because overall it was a struggle, but you counted on those guys to make a key few plays, which they need to have the confidence to do, which they gained by getting experience. And I see the comment that he's 10 games into his rookie season, which is exactly right. Use this experience, but it has been rough. And so for me, if we're going to see the Chiefs team struggle against Pittsburgh, Houston, Denver, the Chargers, they've got a difficult schedule coming up, which I have more information on here towards the end of the show. But they've got to kind of go through the fire to get there. You just want to see them come on the other side of it. This team has earned the benefit of the doubt that they do get people ready to play. But Najee Johnson is going to be a great story to tell at the end of the year of a kid who overcame struggling in the middle of the season, or it's going to go the other way. And we're going to do a bunch of what about if Jalen Watson hadn't gotten hurt.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the big thing too. One of the things for me is like what happened to Joshua Williams, because Joshua Williams did get some time on the defense last year. He played some snaps on it, but now he's not playing there, and he's now back-to-back weeks had the same penalty on special teams of him just running out of bounds.
Yeah,
I just don't know what's happened there, sadly.
Yeah. All right, let's go through real quick the bottom 5 graded PFF players for the Chiefs defense yesterday. Okay. It was Justin Reed, Tershawn Wharton, Shamari Connor, Derek Nottie, and then last was Felix Anudike Uzama. Most of both Derek Nottie and Felix were run blocking grades being very, very poor in this game. Plenty of time throughout the week to get to those, and do want to get to the tackles as we elongate this show already at 40 minutes as we're trudging our way through it. But let's get into some of the tackle stuff, Tuck, because I know that's where you're going. And I kind of did a deep dive on this, where it wasn't a surprise that two of the lowest graded players for the Chiefs in this game offensively were both tackles. It was Wanya Morris and brain thought. Jawan Taylor. Sorry. Couldn't get his name out, even though I'm staring at a screen with it on there. Both of those players ranked near the bottom. And Tucker, going through the penalties, they both had 3 penalties combined in this game. Again, they're coming at inopportune times. It's coming inside the red zone. It's coming in scoring type situations that are really holding them back and making it more difficult for the offense. That's why you felt like the offense, you feel good about it, but the game was closer because they couldn't get the ball in the end zone. It was the key penalties, which we've seen before. But looking at both Jawan Taylor and Wanya Morris, is that both of them are in the top 20 across tackles in the NFL in penalties allowed and also pressures allowed. But the only team besides Buffalo, where both of their tackles have also struggled this year, but the only team in the playoff hunt that's got 2 tackles that are struggling at the level the Chiefs have, just on those basic numbers of most penalties and most pressures given up. We've seen Patrick Mahomes escape those. Saw it all last year or 2 years ago. We were going through those numbers saying he was the most pressured quarterback in the league, but the top 5 in terms of least sacked because he could get away from it. I did think it was interesting yesterday. He was pressured 13 times, only attempted 4 passes when he was pressured, which may have been him deciding like, hey, when it escapes and I leave the pocket, I'm going to throw the ball. Now he was getting sacked because when the tackles were getting beat, he didn't have a whole lot of time to escape and do anything. But again, those tackles, there's a large enough sample size now, among the most penalized and among the most and giving up the most pressures.
That's probably a sign why the Chiefs felt like they needed to call DJ Humphries. And that's probably a good indicator of why the Chiefs felt like they needed somebody else to come into the building. DJ Humphries last year in 2023 had a fairly good season. He was statistically, in terms of like the PFF numbers, right? It's hard to statistically evaluate linemen, right? There's no like they don't stuff stat sheets. Offensive linemen don't. But in terms of snaps and pressure opportunities and pressures allowed, pressures given up, pressure rate, everything like that, DJ Humphries was better than Donovan Smith last year. And granted, he's coming off of an ACL injury, a torn ACL, a guy who has been in the league for a while. I believe this will be his 9th season off the top of my head. I have to double check that, but he's an older guy who's going to come in with some experience and hopefully add some stability to that offensive line on the left side of things. I think Jawan Taylor has played pretty well this year, like better than he has last year. And if they can just get some stability on the left side of the line, we've seen what the Chiefs have been able to do with average level play, right? With average offensive tackle play, they won a Super Bowl. Donovan Smith was not a star by any stretch of the means. And there was, a lot of times last year where I can remember we were having podcasts talking about hey, should Donovan Smith even be like, should they do something else about Donovan Smith here? We were having those conversations about Donovan Smith. And now fast forward 6 months later, you're thinking, well, I think they need to bring in Donovan Smith. Donovan Smith needs to come back. He needs to come back on this team. I do think that DJ Humphries is going to be a guy that they are going to try to start. I don't think this is a guy who came in for depth. I think this is a very clearly a starting role for DJ Humphries. It's going to be dependent on how fast he can get in football shape and just regular shape in general. Both of those things he's probably going to have to get up to speed with. He is medically cleared. He is. So this on the post-game show. I'll say it again. He's not technically with the team yet. He's expected to be with the team today. But I'm going to be curious to see how fast they try to get him up to speed because, as you mentioned, BJ, that left side of the line has not been good with Kingsley, with Wanya. They haven't had an answer yet. I'm very curious to see how fast they get DJ Humphries up to speed. And
based on some people I've talked to, it's going to be a few weeks. They're going to try. Yeah, he's got to get into football shape. This is not he's going to start on Friday type of thing based on anything that I've heard like that. But looking at the PFF numbers again, to put a bow on this, Jawan Taylor and Wanya Morris combined to give up 9 pressures. Patrick Mahomes had 11 pressures yesterday, the 2 tackles, and they're always going to be higher. So that makes sense. But 5 pressures allowed for Taylor, 4 pressures allowed for Wanye, and then Trey Smith allowed 2 pressures as well, one of which was talked about a lot. I think Mitch Schwartz was tweeting about it today. Different things, especially when there's stunts going on, there's rules about how that works. So I'd caution anyone that just sees a clip from a fan putting it out. Like, that's why I like guys like Mitch and people who understand what's going up front to break some of that stuff down, just so we have context, we understand what we're watching and what the rules are with that. But tackle's got to be better. I keep going back to, the 50 touchdown, 5,000 yard season from Mahomes. And it was all, nobody had seen this yet. And he hadn't seen these defenses, and he had Tyreek Hill. He also had Mitch Schwartz and Eric Fisher.
Yeah.
Like, he had 2 top 10 tackles, giving him some time. And there were times yesterday against a bad pass. Let's be honest. They had 5 sacks, not a good pass rush so far this season for Carolina. But there were times when Mahomes did have time in the pocket where it looked as easy as it has throughout his career. Yeah. And it's like, man, when he has time, the offensive line's doing its thing and he's not having to step up and then scroll, like, slide outside like we see all the time when he steps up and makes a play outside. When he's in rhythm, it doesn't matter that he has so many injuries at receiver. You just need one of those 2 things to happen. But all right, let's move on and talk a little Mike Dana. Because he did have a sack in this game, and it was in the second quarter of Sunday's game against the Panthers. He had a 14-yard sack strip of Panthers quarterback Bryce Young. That gives Dana 1.5 sacks on the season, 18.5 for his career. Marks Dana's first forced fumble of the season, now owns 5 career forced fumbles. Dana finished the afternoon's contest with 4 tackles, including 1 for loss, 1 quarterback hit, 1 forced fumble, and 1 sack. All those things happened on the same play. Mike Dana is not the one that we want to be talking about when it comes to the Chiefs pass rush and where they need it to come from, because not really what Mike Dana should be there for compared to some of the other people that are mixing in up front, which we'll talk about here. But that was a big play and a big moment, and those things shouldn't get glossed over as well.
Yeah, I believe that sack came, according to Next Gen Stats, 5.4 seconds. So it was not a first effort sack. It was a
7th effort sack.
Some would call that a coverage sack in terms of how that happened. And I believe that was the Chiefs' only sack of the day, and their only – so in terms, that would be their fastest sack that they had. The pass rush has been, as you mentioned, the pass rush has left more to be desired. We'll say, we'll put it that way. Chris Jones, I don't think, had a stat in this game, and I don't think that is something that you want, to put it nicely. But there needs to
make more impactful plays.
Yes,
for sure.
There needs to be more from the defensive line. Look, I understand Charles Omenihu's coming back. What version of Charles Omenihu are we going to get coming off of an ACL injury? Just like we'll talk about DJ Humphries, right? Like, what are you going to get from him? What are you going to get from Charles Omenihu coming off an ACL injury? A guy who, played really well last year. I was really happy with the Charles Omenihu signing. I'm going to be curious to see when he comes back. I think this week he should be activated, right? Because I think they're coming up on the end of that 21-day window. So he should be activated, added to the active roster. Makes sense why they didn't do it last week, right? Just with the short week coming up, don't want him to play a game, then have to do with a short week. Just don't worry about that game. Come in on the short week and kind of help them here. But yes, I do think that there's more to be desired on the defensive line. Look, they've done good in the run game, but they've got to get after the quarterback, because teams are going to stop running the ball because the Chiefs have done so well against the run and target like players that we've already talked about.
Yeah, and to talk about Chris Jones real quick, because you want to see him, because we're used to seeing him in the 3rd, 4th quarter get the key sack in the big situation that kind of closes out the game. We haven't seen that happen, whether it's because the guys behind him aren't covering for long enough that the ball's out and guys are open faster. But Chris Jones had 5 pressures in this game. He had a pass rush win rate of 22.9%. Which led the team. 5 pressures led the team. Karlaftis had 4. Chiefs had 21 on the game. He had 4 hurries, and a couple of times that Chris Jones got into the backfield. The one play that I remember we talked about on the postgame show was the touchdown run up the middle where Chris Jones had a chance. Didn't really drive his feet through. I'm not going to break down one of the best defensive players in this era of football and breaking down his tackling for him, as what do I know? But I can tell you that if that's a playoff game, I think there's a little more juice behind it, and I think Chris Jones makes that tackle. Doesn't mean he's not trying, doesn't mean he doesn't care, but there's an extra layer of juice that comes with playing January, February football that Chris Jones has proven to be able to do, not necessarily making that tackle on the goal line on the road, where if he felt anything like I did, Mahomes is going to go down, they're going to win the football game anyway.
Yeah.
But you need to see him make those plays, and you want to feel better about the defense overall. Wasn't their best performance, hasn't been Chris's best stretch in finishing plays over the last few weeks, but he's right there, and it's another one of those players similar to Mahomes that you want to see more, but can't really doubt whether or not he's going to get it done because he's proven it too many times.
I totally agree. I'm looking at the next gen stats here for Chris Jones. His average separation from the quarterback, which is a pass rusher's average distance from the quarterback at the time the passer throws or the sack in yardage, only includes passing plays where the defender is rushing the passer, is 4.31 yards. So on average in this game, he was 4 yards away from the quarterback when he threw the ball. And I think there's a lot there when it comes to I talked about this last week with Nate Taylor a little bit. He's getting doubled a lot, obviously, like because nobody else is winning, so you're going to double Chris Jones. You need that complimentary pass rush to kind of clear up for Chris Jones, and I think that is. I couldn't find his double team rate on next gen stats, but yeah, I do think that's going to be something. Is that you got to have that complimentary winner to then free up for Chris Jones.
Yeah, that's an interesting stat, and not that you can't poke holes, but there are gigantic holes that could kind of. This is where you just go ask Joseph Hefner. Like I'm sure there's a way. But if Chris Jones beats like a guard quickly and gets one of the pressures that we just talked about, and Bryce Young steps up and slides out 15 yards and throws the football, that's going to be a significantly large gap that maybe Chris Jones isn't giving the same kind of like second level effort where he runs by and then he's trying to chase him down from behind. So by the time he throws it, he kind of gave up on it because he's 12 yards behind him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think there is holes in a lot of these advanced analytics stats.
There are times that we've seen throughout Chris's career and we saw it with Frank Clark later in his career, Frank Clark guy, where they're exhausted. They talk about on the broadcast, they're tired, where you can watch him just kind of stand up and he's got a double. He's not trying at all. He's like, I'm occupying these two blockers no matter how much effort I give on this play. And we've seen that. I didn't see a ton of it. I wasn't looking for it. I'm going back and rewatch it. I haven't seen enough of that to where like you kind of roll your eyes like, all right, come on, man. So again, they won the football game, move on. Stacking games up. They stayed healthy for the most part.
They didn't get hurt. That was a big thing.
Like just stay healthy, win the football game, move on, knowing that you're getting a lot more guys back and they're trending upward, which is what you want to see late November as you get in December, just kind of stacking certain things on top of each other. And maybe for the tackles we've been talking about, it's DJ Humphries getting in the mix over the next few weeks and seeing what that looks like. But offense incrementally a little bit better. All right, Trent McDuffie and Nick Bolton combined for a quarterback takedown. McDuffie and Bolton combined to take down Bryce Young for a 0-yard loss on the Kansas City 2-yard line with 8:04 left in the third quarter, with the half sack for each. Bolton now owns 3.5 total sacks, and McDuffie has 4.5 sacks for his career. I don't think we need to add a whole lot to that unless
I would like to have him have an interception, right? I would like an interception for McDuffie, but I guess beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah. And he's still a top cornerback, but he's given up a handful of plays where he's right in position to make a play on the ball, and he's gotten beat. Yeah. And sometimes that happens. And I will shout out. I know they said on the I know Charles Davis brought it up on the broadcast. It was not that I watch a lot of Bryce Young, but I was impressed coming away. Like there were flashes of Bryce Young hanging in the pocket, and I don't say it's comparing him to Russell Wilson, but he's that short-statured, shorter guy that just kind of drops in the bucket. It's got a lot of good touch on some of those, throwing him up over the shoulder of defenders when he's got some vertical loft to the ball, where he made some nice throws.
He did. I honestly think that was Bryce Young's best game of his NFL career. And I don't think it's really that close. He made some really good throws when he had guys in his face. The one that I know Ken talked about this on the post-game show. The guy, he literally had two guys coming down, and he just delivered an absolute dime on third down. And so, some of that is great skill, but he just put it at the right spot. But I was impressed with Bryce Young. That's the best I've ever seen him play.
Yep, absolutely. All right, and you know who else stayed perfect?
Who was that?
Spencer Schrader.
He did.
The newly acquired kicker remained
Shout
perfect on field goals and extra points during Sunday's 30-27 win over the Panthers. Schrader, who was picked up off the New York Jets practice squad on November 15th after Butker was placed on IR, boasts a perfect field goal percentage so far with his time with the Chiefs, going 3 for 3 on field goal attempts against the Panthers and 3 for 3 in point after attempts, both last week against Buffalo and in this game against the Panthers, and added the game-winning field goal from 31 yards out as time expired. Tucker, I can't get out of my head what Spencer Schrader must have been thinking in a very subdued locker room with a game winner for the back-to-back Super Bowl champs, the 10-1, go on the road, escape a victory, and nobody's happy.
I feel bad for him. I really do. There was a muted celebration, right, for Spencer Schrader after that. I don't even think if you look on the sideline, they were more excited about blocking the field goal than Spencer Schrader hitting the game winner. I do feel bad for him. Look, he's been rifling that ball in there too. I've been impressed with him. I know Dave Tobe said in I believe that was last Wednesday's press conference, or Thursday's actually, he talked about how Spencer Schrader, much like Harrison Butker, was the number one guy they had on their board, because they still go and they do all their board stuff for special teamers, even though they have the highest paid kicker on their team. They're still going to do all that stuff every draft. They
don't get season. 3 months off during the off season. They got to go to work just like everybody else.
Right. And to have him number one on their board and then have him be available for them to then sign off a practice squad, where it's reported that he had the opportunity to join the Jets active roster, and he said, no, thank you. I'm going to join the Chiefs. I think it's a great story for him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much longer he'll have a job, but like, just to have this opportunity of him to be around this team, like, I can't imagine from his shoes, like, what this is like to hit a game-winning field goal to put this team 10-1, and they're pissed off in the locker room after you hit a game winner. I mean, it's got to be a feeling unlike any other.
My son could give you some next level analysis on Spencer Schrader, because when we played in Buffalo, he's out there warming up before the game. He was consistently kicking it over the safety net to where like the fans were catching him. This is like hour and a half, before the game. And it was right by the end zone where we're at. And I asked Carter if he wanted to go catch him. And there were a bunch of security people up there, I think, making sure that the only people that were allowed to catch them were people that had those seats. Like, they were checking tickets. They're very particular about it, which makes sense. It's a fun added thing. Yeah. The people who have those seats wanted to sit there, but consistently hitting it over the net compared to Tyler Bass, the Buffalo kicker, was not. So he's like, our new kicker is significantly better because he's kicking the ball higher and farther. And he's like, why do you got to kick the ball high? And then I was explaining, like, well, if you kick it low on the further ones, it could get blocked, like we saw against Denver. But that wasn't a long field goal, which makes it even more funny.
Yeah, that's true.
We had a nice long conversation about it, but there's some Spencer Schrader analysis for you.
I don't know if you saw this. Sorry, before we move on. Spencer Schrader's first extra point hit the official in the head. It went off the...
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I'll find the video on Twitter and I'll retweet it.
In Buffalo? Or
no,
Carolina?
It's Carolina. The official, it hits off the net, obviously, and the official steps up to do it's good, and then it comes out and hits him right on top of the head.
I did also think it was interesting. I was texting in Buffalo. I was texting with Nate Taylor because he was up in the press box, and Nate pays attention to all this stuff because beat writers, like, during warmups, you're checking to make sure all the starters are in and that there's not some freaky thing going on. But Justin Reed came out and kicked with the specialists before the game against the Bills. Oh. He was out there. He jogged out early when all the specialists, Winchester and all of them, come running out. Yeah. Like, Justin Reed was with them. And then on the Chiefs' first kickoff against Buffalo, Justin Reed ran out on the field and was out there. Tobe comes out on the field and then pulls him off and then lets Spencer Schrader kick. But, like, he was on the field during the game running out there like he was going to kick off. Oh. But during warmups, I texted Nate. I'm like, does Justin Reed normally come out? And he goes, I just tweeted the same thing. I was like, glad to know I'm still, every once in a while, paying attention to the right things. But I don't know if he did that against Carolina. I'd be interested. Maddie was paying any attention to that while he was there in person. But yeah, Justin Reed ran out on the field like he was going to kick off, and then they pulled him off at the last second on that first kickoff. So
that is really
let's move on to number 10. This is the final one. And then if there's any questions or thoughts in the comment section, we'll bring those up and react to those. But Tuck, this is looking ahead. I wanted to look at, the top teams in the AFC and what kind of remaining schedule they've got as to what the Chiefs' potential chances now that it's kind of winding down. You've got 6 games left with a playoff push. Chiefs obviously sitting at 10-1 is number one seed in the AFC right now. They've got a half game lead over Buffalo since Buffalo has the tiebreaker on them. The remaining win-loss record for the Chiefs and their opponents is 34-33. It's a plus one, differential. So the teams are about 500. A lot of that is bad because of the Raiders, but the Chiefs do have Pittsburgh, Houston, and Denver as their last 3 games, and all 3 of those teams are in the playoff hunt. Buffalo, who's half game back at 9-2 right now, the remaining record of the teams they're going to face is 29-39. 10 games below 500. They have a significantly easier schedule. But then you look at Pittsburgh, who's 8-3, who the Chiefs still have to play. So you still have to beat them, obviously. But 37-29, they have a +8 game differential. They had the most of the top 4 teams in the AFC. Pittsburgh has the most difficult schedule coming up. Obviously, they still have to play the Chiefs. And then the Chargers at 7-3. They still have to face the Chiefs again. Wife and I will be at that game. Can't wait. Prime time. But 40-39 with a +1 game, like winning differential. So same as the Chiefs as far as the remaining schedule for the Chargers, and obviously they're playing one another. But Buffalo's schedule is pretty easy. So if you're kind of scoreboard watching, Buffalo's the one to keep an eye on above more so than the others. Because if they can drop one they're not supposed to, create a little more comfortability for the Chiefs, so they don't have another one of those dud games against Pittsburgh, Houston, Denver in the last game of the year. Be really nice if that was settled up before Denver would have a chance to spoil anything.
Yeah, it would be. Buffalo's remaining schedule, they play the Patriots twice in 3 games, in the last 3 games.
Yeah.
That obviously softens that up a little bit. They are now this week going to play a battered up 49ers team. They do still have the Lions. The Lions could be a team where you could see them losing, and I think so I think that might give the Chiefs a little bit of leeway, but you're looking at the Bills' schedule and thinking, they could very well win out, which would then force the Chiefs to win out, which I think the Chiefs do, as you have laid it out here, I think perfectly in terms of the records. Chiefs have a tougher stretch to try to win out than like the Bills or even the Chargers do. I think it's really interesting how the NFL did Pittsburgh's schedule. I've talked about this a couple times, I think, with Matt Verderam on other podcasts as well. I think I talked about it with Barber on the process last week. The way that the NFL set up the Steelers' schedule, absolutely brutal. They didn't start their divisional play until 2 weeks ago. Maybe even last week, and they have all but 2 division games. The Eagles and the Chiefs are the only 2 games they don't have that are within the division. So they are playing the last half of their schedule is just straight division games, and they play in the hardest division in the AFC. So they've got a tough slate ahead.
Cincinnati team that's going to quit.
That's true.
By the time they play, but
The Browns are scrappy. That's a scrappy Browns team now. The Chiefs got to play the Browns, but
you just love Jameis. Just because you love Jameis, don't lie.
It is. I had the opportunity to show Tara a little bit of Jameis last night. I was like, "You're gonna love this guy," and we are now a Jameis household. This is now a Jameis Winston household.
Somebody said he looks every time he talks, he's auditioning for a movie part that he's never gonna get, and I can't get that out of my head.
Yeah, it is. Talks. You know who reminds me of Jameis Winston? It's a guy that we talk to pretty frequently, and I made this connection last night.
Who's that?
Sean Barber. They're pretty similar, and they both are very passionate. We had a
because Sean always ends up being right in so many instances where it's just like, I don't know, man, and then it's like, oh my god, yeah, that actually worked out that way.
I think that's why I love Sean Barber so much too. Is I think he has a little bit of Jameis in him. Yeah, shout out Sean Barber. He gave me tickets to KU Colorado, so I really do appreciate Sean Barber. I love him with my whole heart.
Dr. Ozzy says his teammate says he calls plays in the huddle like they're a surprise to him. Always makes me laugh.
Did you see the clip of him saying,
"We get to run this play right now"?
He was trying to get all the clips coming out from the snow game against the Steelers. Obviously, was incredible, great content. But the one of him trying to get them to jump off sides, he said, "Somebody jump off sides!" Damn.
I wish
love
they
it.
would mic up more to catch moments like that, but then everything else.
Yeah,
would
there's a
be,
lot I don't think you can put out there, but yes,
a lot of people's opinions would change.
yes, very, very true.
There's a lot of talk going on. But again, appreciate all you for hanging out. And this was perhaps one of the longest episodes of 10 Things. Besides,
Oh
we had
yeah,
Nate Taylor on. Those have been a solid 85, 90
yeah.
minutes. But shout out, thank you all for listening and or watching. Appreciate everybody hanging out in the chat. We appreciate your support. And again, we'll hit it for the next couple of weeks. But if you're feeling like you want to give back and you have the means to do so, consider supporting our Soul of KC holiday raffle and toy drive. It's benefiting Operation Breakthrough and all the phenomenal work they do in our community. We are helping benefit their Christmas store again this year with a giant shopping spree to Dick's Sporting Goods. We go there, we buy all the toys and presents we possibly can, and we load up the Operation Breakthrough truck, which actually meets us at the store. And we fill it up as much as we possibly can, and they get those to the people that need them to make sure that more kids in our community have a great Christmas. But you can see all the prizes, more than 20 prizes available, from a Patrick Mahomes signed mini helmet to tickets to Chiefs games, Chris Jones jersey, Justin Reed jersey, Nick Bolton jersey, a Leo Chanel jersey, all kinds of other great stuff. A Bobby Witt Jr. art piece from Caitlin Snelling to mix in some royal stuff as well. Some really cool prizes, but more so than that, the money is going towards a phenomenal program and phenomenal people there at Operation Breakthrough, and we're happy to be able to support them. And we appreciate Dick's Sporting Goods for the 4th year for supporting this.
Yes.
And helping us execute this. But we appreciate everybody for hanging out. For myself and Tucker Franklin, be good to each other. Have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy the time with family and friends, and we'll see you next time.